And I think it's the title music of Civilization 4.
जनाब क्या है? कोई समस्या नहीं।
I get the intro now, it looks nice. Yep. The game is in the background and there's nothing particularly important going on right now. I see. Okay, that looks more like it doesn't exactly look like it's taking place in ancient Egypt. Looks like it's taking place in Egyptized Rome. I see.
Hath not the potter power over the clay to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? It is entirely seemly for a young man killed in battle to lie mangled by the bronze spear. In his death, all things appear fair.
I see.
Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime.
But I think you know what the longest lasting empire on Earth so far is. No. Nope. Forget about these so-called 1,000 years, but even then it wouldn't be. Egypt. Yep. I think they were almost 3,000 years old as a civilization when they became conquered by Rome. Yeah, a lot of their buildings are still around. Well, stone lasts a long time. And yeah, they started off very early. And there are a lot of historical records from Egypt because the pharaohs decided to write their achievements, to carve their achievements into stone.
Blessed shall be the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep.
Yeah, nobody has figured out yet how they built them. The problem is how did they get the stones up? How did they build the ramps? I mean, a straight ramp would need more material than the pyramid itself. So it's probably out of the question that they used a straight ramp. So what else did they use? And even so, imagine that they were able back in the day to hold more than 20, 30,000 workers at the same time together and provide for food and everything. I mean, that's remarkable in itself.
If you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both.
I don't know. The point is they had many very qualified workers they really had to pay. So building the pyramids was never cheap. The point is the Egyptian had actually we have to go way back, probably even to the Babylonians now. Humans invented the script to be able to remember things, like in big cities where the people were trading and so on. They needed to keep written records. They couldn't remember stuff anymore. That's why the script was invented, and later on they found out they could do much more with it. So the Egyptians really knew. They did a lot of things. They even built a predecessor of the Suez Canal.
Do not throw the arrow which will return against you.
They did have a connection between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. At least for a certain time. They later gave it up, as far as I know. But yes, they had one. So the idea of the Suez Canal wasn't exactly new when Lesseps built it. It was thousands of years old. Okay, I know they don't like it for some reasons. But the idea of the Suez Canal, even if you don't like to talk about Suez, is very old. I see. If they had tried to invade Suez, it would have been a major war pretty quickly. I think they wanted control over the canal, and that wouldn't have been easy. So yes, although the canal certainly is a major feat of engineering, the Panama Canal is even more so. The idea is thousands of years old. I think more than 3,000 years. I could look it up. So the Egyptians already had done it. They did a lot with a stone. They had ships on the Nile. The Nile was their main mean of transport. Pretty easy. You sail up the river and let yourself drift down. Then the river was an extremely fertile area because of the regular floodings. The fertile ground got renewed every year. So I think they could harvest 3 times a year. Because they also stored the water from the Nile pretty early on. They knew pretty early on what to do, and they had people. The Nile changed its bed every year, pretty much. So in order to get a fair distribution of land for every farmer, they needed mathematicians to equally distribute the land. And they did that. And there were also those times where the farmers couldn't work at all, while the Nile was flooding their fields, for instance. So in these times, they actually did work for the buildings and so on. It's a pretty common. It's a pretty common point of view, and these days historians, that they did not use slave labor when building the pyramids. They actually paid the workers. They were rich. I mean, there were a lot of people contributing to the state's welfare. They exported the grain and things like that. So yes, you would be amazed to see the trade routes 1,000 years BC, for instance. Almost, not as much as today, but yeah, the trade routes got around Asia, Europe and Africa. it was the opinion of the historians for a long time, but that changed lately. Okay. Okay. I see. Pretty reasonable. It's yeah. The workers in ancient Egypt were not slaves. They had to hire also qualified personnel to carve the stones and so on. You can't use slaves for that. They normally don't know what to do. They had architects and all that. And while the pharaohs were to the people like gods. And then imagine a pharaoh coming like Ramesses II, who rules for 60 years straight. For almost as long as your current queen. Yeah, I think she has surpassed Ramesses II, but not yet the former Thai king Bhumibol. He is a few years ahead of her still. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Ramesses II died at an age of 92 or something like that, and consider the time. 92 was so exceptional back in the day. It seemed to many people that this pharaoh was immortal. Take the average age people reached back in the day. He was a pharaoh for 2 generations. 2 generations hadn't seen another pharaoh but Ramesses II. And he is rightfully called Ramesses the Great. Take a look at what he did, what he achieved. He fought a few wars in the beginning. He couldn't win over the Hittites, so he made a peace contract, and that's actually documented, the peace treaty with the Hittites. And he was pretty good at doing propaganda too. He sold a lost battle as a win to his people. So yeah, he was pretty good at that too. Nothing new. The Egyptians had all of this. But I think the time of Ramesses II was pretty much the height of the Egyptian Empire. After that, a long and slow decline started. First of all, they weren't as expansionist as the others. They limited themselves to Egypt because, in their opinion, there was no better place than Egypt. And frankly, considering the Nile and all the advantages it brought, they were pretty much right about that. So, yeah, and since they didn't grow, they ultimately got overpowered. By Rome, for instance. Rome had so many legions at their hands that the Egyptians couldn't keep up. And even so, the Egyptians once were conquered by the Nubians, so there were a few sub-Saharan African pharaohs around. Actually, in a way, the Egyptian culture conquered the invaders, not the other way around. And I once saw a photo of a few statues. I see. Okay, about that photo of that Nubian pharaohs. Actually, one of them made me laugh loudly. He had ears like a Ferengi. No miracle that these Nubian pharaohs brought Egypt back on the map. With the Ferengi helping them. Anyway, things aside, later on, about 300 BC, the Egyptians got conquered by Alexander the Great. So from that time on, the pharaohs were essentially Greeks. But even so, the Greeks adopted the Egyptian culture, not the other way around. Or the Macedonians, to be precise.
You should hammer your iron when it is glowing hot.
I see. The point is, this happened a lot of times. Only Egypt seemed quite resilient. The only major clash inside Egypt was when... I forgot the name of that... pharaoh all the time, the husband of... I think the English ones call her Nefertiti. Who tried to... His original name was, I think, Amenhotep. He later changed his name. Egyptian pharaohs tend to change their names. I'm going to look up the name. Echnaton is his name. It means something like servant of Aton. And he tried to enforce Aton as the single god. It basically was a struggle for power against the all too powerful priests. And while Echnaton didn't last long, and after Echnaton they returned to their traditional gods, which ultimately probably proved fatal because the priests grew too powerful. They had a hell of a lot of money. got it. Yeah, I should start it, check if it works, and if how the gameplay looks like. That's probably the most important part. I see. The point is, yeah, another 5 minutes. I see. Anyway, but jumping from Civilization to Star Trek, I guess the prime directive in Star Trek is a direct result of the situation, of the things happening to cultures when they get invaded. They have been invaded by the Saxons
Not at
in
all similar
the
to
early
race of
5th
immortal
century, I
gods,
think,
the race of men who walk upon the earth.
when the mythological King Arthur came up. Nobody knows if that's a real historical person, but around that time they were invaded by the Normans from Normandy and France. I think that pretty much covers it, as far as I know. At least twice. But even so, both the residents and the invaders were technologically at the same level, pretty much at both occasions. So the ruling class probably was switched, but that was it. Take the invasion of the American continent, or the American continents, things are a lot more different. I mean, the indigenous population is, well, almost non-existent these days. Does it make any sense to build pyramids? I see, okay. That's an argument, build a pyramid. I see. So we shall see. You are playing it for the first time now? I see, so we will be pretty much on a similar level. That's at least comforting. I see.
I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Yeah, you can listen to Leonard Nimoy in Star Trek Online a lot. He voiced some of the narratives in the game. Yeah, it's a pity he passed away. I mean, he was pretty old, 83 or so. But nevertheless. Yeah, actually, some people these days really discuss why humans invented religion. What kind of advantage did it give to them? Probably yes. Or if I put it like Nietzsche did, man invented God in his image because he couldn't stand having to die. It makes sense, yes. Although normally I tend to go with Aristotle as far as philosophy goes, stating that he said everything that could have been said. I mean, he stated it himself, but if you want to have an answer to something, read it in my scripts. I see. Well, if you've got Egyptians, I'm pretty sure that back in the day, in the whole area of Russia, there was no one. I think that the Normans first settled Russia. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I've read that one. The word Rus or Rus is the Norman, is probably derived from the Norman word for salmon. But it is today people believe actually that the Vikings were the first to settle Russia. I mean, the Vikings really got around. I mean, take their ships. They don't look like much. But if you take a close look at them, they are a marvel of engineering.
If in other sciences we should arrive at certainty without doubt and truth without error,
add to it that the ship is light enough that the crew can carry it. Not if it's fully loaded, of course, but if it's empty. So it could transport their ships over land if they couldn't get there through water. That made them much more flexible. They raided Paris via the Seine with, as it said, 1,000 ships. So, yes, they were a power back then.
Meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Know well what leads you forward and what holds you back.
Well, you as the leader of that unit should definitely know who killed your unit. I see. Yep. If you haven't eaten since now, I mean it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning in the UK. I see. Well, normally I should go to bed now. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, I don't have to work today. No, I don't have a problem. I'll stay up for a while. Yep. At least I hope we don't play like D'Artagnan, who had to keep track of his duel dates, or the people had to line up to fight him, because he had 4 or 5 duels the same morning. Sure. And I've still got the Elder Scrolls Online. I haven't played that one in a while, but yeah, you are not as versatile as in the Mass Effect games. I see, yeah. The point is, as far as even Mass Effect Andromeda goes, the combat system is fairly excellent. I really can't complain about that. What you can do is you can use the different profiles for the character, giving the character different properties. No, you can switch between infiltrator profile and other profiles. I don't remember the profiles because I mostly played the character on the infiltrator profile, but you can switch between the profiles. Without having to reconfigure the character.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
I see. No, not yet. I have to do a few things in Star Trek Online, a little bit of crafting. And I'll try to play Mass Effect Delayed that a little. And while it can be a bit... It takes some time to go through 16 characters in total. So you could say I have too many characters. I don't need to do them all, so... Point is, for instance, I've already played for that ship tonight, and I only need to do it with one of my characters on the account, because the ship is later available account-wide. So that makes things a lot easier. Yeah, sounds like a sensible move. Well, if you start building the Great Wall in China, you'll probably be safe. I mean, China got conquered by the Mongols, so they had a reason to build that wall. I see. But be careful that you hit them the way like Khufu did, rather the way like Joza did. He wasn't so lucky with his pyramids. And actually, even that building of Sir Christopher Wren in London needed to be improved, that it didn't crumble at some point. I guess you know what building I mean. It's on Ludgate Hill in London. Oh, okay. So I tell you what building that is, St. Paul's. Well, Sir Christopher Wren built it, and he wanted to have that big dome on top of it in the center. It's a pretty ingenious building, and even if you see the wooden model of it, how it was originally supposed to look like, he wasn't allowed to do that. Christopher Wren must have been pretty rich. That wooden model cost about £500. That's documented. But back in the day, you got an entire house for that kind of money. I see. Okay, I didn't know that, but he was a well-known scientist and architect. It's probably his most famous building. I see. I mean, the building is actually quite interesting because of the foundation, because it's literally built on sand, and normally no architect likes that. He had to do quite a few things, and it could stand there for hundreds of years. They had to enforce the area around the dome using iron struts, because the stone alone didn't last well enough. The problem is if something gets moving only by little, you have to do something about it. And you can see the places where this was done if you look carefully.
हम वहीं पर हैं।
So you're now building India. I mean, sometimes you have to invest money, but if you are losing money in the long run, that couldn't possibly be good. Yeah. Hmm. I see. Anyway, I think you know what barbarian means. The Greek referred to everyone as being a barbarian who couldn't speak Greek without an accent. Actually, the Greek word barbaros means stutterer. Yep. And the word later changed the meaning what we consider today a barbarian. So at the beginning, the Greeks considered the Romans barbarians, although as a matter of fact, the Roman military power was bigger even back then. So in a way, there's another instance of one culture conquering the other. The Greeks conquered the Roman culture because the Romans took the Greek gods, not the other way around. And, of course, the educated Roman did not speak Latin. The educated Roman spoke Greek. I see.
A multitude of rulers is not a good thing. Let there be one ruler, one king.
You have become so silent. Now I can at least hear myself. I see. Well, depending on the decisions you take, you have to be focused. I see. Okay, a little bit dislocated. And by the way, considering that it is a mystery how the Egyptians built the pyramids, Stonehenge is even a bigger one. It is supposed to be in alignment with the sun, yes. Not sure it was supposed to be that originally, but obviously they added it later. And similar systems, or should I say buildings, were also found in other places in Europe. There is a similar thing in Goseck in Germany, but there the pillars were made of wood, so you can only see the holes where they were placed. Oh, I see. Did you ask her why? I see. Well, I would know what I had to say about it. Things like fuck off or so. Yeah. did you build? I didn't get that. Oh, I see. I don't know that place. I mean, I know Bombay, but not the other one. Can you please spell the name? It might be a problem that I don't understand it correctly. You mean the Oracle of Delphi? Okay. Okay, now I know. Yeah. So, now you have the Greeks without the Oracle of Delphi. So what are they supposed to do? No more databases, no more computer programming languages. I see. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if we have a service where we report to our customers what patches they have to apply on certain applications, and Oracle is among them. As far as Oracle is concerned, I always say the Oracle of Delphi has spoken, because their reports on their say weaknesses in our program errors are as cryptic as the Oracle of Delphi. They never say much. The point is that they tell the people to upgrade, but they don't really tell them why, what's exactly wrong. The other point is that some people did some research on how other people upgrade, and the main problem is people almost never upgrade a database engine, be it Oracle or a different one. They're way too much afraid they might lose any data. And if something goes wrong, this could well happen. Even if you have a backup, it probably is going to take you days to get it up again. And frankly, the database frontends are way more important than the database itself. That should be well protected behind anything you can muster to get all the connections secure. $500,000. Okay, that has to grow by a factor of 1,000. I can quote, I think it was Wilhelm II. No, Friedrich II. I always mistake them. I'm not sure about the name. And the German emperor who said, Bismarck, it was not easy to be emperor under your command. Bismarck was supposed to be the chancellor and be under the emperor's command. That's why the emperor said that on his deathbed.
Words have the power to both destroy.
Bismarck had apparently had a lot of power in the mind of his own.
They can change our world.
And I think his demise by the later his forced retirement by the later emperor probably also contributed to World War I. Bismarck tried, back in the day, I think he tried everything to avoid a situation like World War I, but ultimately he failed. I mean, World War One was more or less bound to happen. I don't think so. What do you mean? Can you please spell it? That's... I think only that would, in my opinion, more sound like World War II. I see. Well, I'm not aware of that, but I'm not an expert in history either. The problem is that there was a... Well, the situation between Germany and France was never very friendly, to put it mildly, back in the day. I think that started to change when our chancellor back then, Adenauer, and the president of France back then, de Gaulle, first met. They obviously got along pretty well. And by the way, despite most of the time, despite political differences. I mean, most of the time, French presidents and German chancellors were on the opposite sides. Well, not exactly opposite, but you know what I mean. On different sides of the political spectrum. So, for instance, Helmut Kohl, conservative, versus the socialist Mitterrand. The two of them had a very good relationship on a personal level. So during that time, certainly the relationship between France and Germany was a fairly easy one. And well, quite unspectacular, I think, too. But it was a routinely good relationship.